You're listening to hashtag No Filter with Zack Peter. That's me, your naturally platinum blonde pop culture connoisseur. I'm the reality TV junkie, self-improvement addict, and host with only the hottest tea spilled fresh all week long. Those balls have gotten you into trouble, though.
Yeah. They picked us because we're horny.
Yeah,
right.
And that's your chronic state.
24/7.
My life has changed so much that it's almost like a completely different life.
From the latest news on the Real Housewives,
I'm so happy to be here and engage with you.
deep dives into celebrity legal scandals, and unfiltered convos with your favorite stars, I've got you covered. And yes, I always keep receipts. Welcome on in, guys. Welcome on in to an all-new episode of hashtag No Filter with Zack Peter. Hopefully you guys had a nice weekend. I know I did. Had a bit of a family weekend, but I also kind of took like most of Friday and all of Saturday off, which gave me an opportunity to watch Hocus Pocus 2. Well, it gave me an opportunity to watch a lot. So I'll be doing a lot of different reviews of some of the latest streaming shows this week and a little bit next week, which also gave me a moment to remind you that we have all new episodes of You're Doing Amazing, Sweetie, that will now be dropping every Friday instead of Mondays. I know last week we announced that we were launching on Mondays, but we have shifted to Fridays. So episodes 1 and 2 are out now exclusively on Spotify's Rinna Reality TV podcast. So head over to Spotify now and listen to episodes 1 and 2 of You're Doing Amazing, Sweetie with me and Amelia. And we have a lot of tea to break down today, lots of Housewives dish to spill, but I can't do it alone. Today's guest is a fellow Housewives fan with lots of hot takes on Twitter. He's the editorial director at Equal Pride and the publisher of Out Traveler and The Advocate. Please welcome Neil Broverman.
Hi guys, how are you? I'm so excited to be here.
How you doing, Neil?
I'm good. I love talking about Housewives, so to be able to do it and with a fellow Housewife fan is, because usually I'm doing it in the void of Twitter.
Yeah. Which is the worst. Twitter is like.
Yeah, I mean, I think Twitter we should talk about, because I think Twitter is, I think you were touching upon it, how it kind of the Twitter reaction to everything from like Teresa Giudice on Dancing with the Stars to Kathy Hilton. It's a little lopsided. Like, I don't, we kind of think that Twitter's the world, but it's clearly not.
Obviously not. I mean, so many people are like, I hate Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's so toxic. It's unwatchable, but it's literally the #1 Housewives show on Bravo right now. And I'm like, if it's so toxic and unwatchable, who's watching it?
Right. You know what's weird too about Twitter? I don't know. I think we talked about this a little bit, is that the reaction to Teddi Mellencamp is like on Twitter, she is like villain #1. And I don't get it. I mean, listen, I'm not like a Teddi. I didn't even watch the show that much when she was on it. But so I just don't understand the super strong reactions to her on Twitter, where it's just like she killed puppies or something. I don't get it.
Right. And for me, I'm like, the #1 thing is everyone's like, oh, Teddi is so boring. And then I used to say that too back on when she was on the show. But now I'm just like, but if she's so boring, why can't we stop talking about her?
Right. She really is a fixation with some people. And it goes beyond like, she's boring, I'm glad she's not here, to like really vitriolic hate towards her. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like there's other housewives that have done really egregious things like that Teddi has not. So it just doesn't seem commiserate, like the hate towards her with what she's actually done.
Catherine Edwards was boring. Nobody even remembers her on the show in season 5, like 6. The season Erica came on, I think, was season 6. Nobody remembers Catherine Edwards because she was boring. Teddi clearly wasn't boring. She lasted, a good 3, maybe 4 seasons, and she at least made a footprint.
She did. And I mean, she became best friends with Kyle, and, Kyle's still very close with her. So, I think part of it too is that Teddi has always been very clear that she wanted to be on the show and that she was upset when she got fired. And that seems to be very, some people on Twitter, I'm not saying all the fans, but they seem to, get really offended when it becomes clear that a housewife is upset that she was fired and wants to come back. Like, that is so
thirsty.
But like, I mean, it's a job and it's notoriety, and it doesn't surprise me.
I think most people in that situation would want to be back on television, you know, if it wasn't their choice to leave and if the opportunity presented itself to return. Why does that make you thirsty? It makes you, you know, in desire of a paycheck. You know, why would anybody walk away from that opportunity to have the exposure to promote yourself, your business, whatever, and the paycheck? Like, I don't understand how that makes you thirsty.
Yeah, it's the same. Like I hear that with Jill Zarin a lot. And listen, I always liked Jill, and I thought she was, you know, and listen, in my capacity as an editor, I interviewed her years ago, and she was wild on the phone. Like she was like, you know, why didn't you put me? We did a Housewives cover years ago on the Advocate, and she was like, well, why didn't you put me on the cover? You know, and she was sort of joking, but sort of not joking, and but nonetheless, she was fun. Yeah. She was pleasant. And, you know, people are always like, Jill's so thirsty. Well, you know, she helped create RHONY, and she wants to promote her company. Like, I don't, you know, it's not the worst crime in the world to be a little ambitious and want to be in a show. I don't know. But a lot of viewers are really don't like when the housewives are upfront about wanting to return. It's strange.
I think it's because the housewife is open about having their ambition shown with being like, I want to be on television. I think so many people sitting at home would secretly have that ambition. So when they see that come to the forefront in somebody else, they want to attack that because they haven't come to terms with the fact that they would probably jump at that opportunity should they have that presented in front of themselves. It's all projection. And with me, I've had to make peace with Twitter because I get beaten up on Twitter all the time, but I'm also just kind of like, but Twitter is not reality because listen, Teresa Giudice and Lisa Vanderpump, I think one of the reasons Teddi Mellencamp gets so much hate is because she won against Lisa Vanderpump, and Lisa Vanderpump has a very loud community on Twitter, as does Teresa Giudice. But as you can see, Teresa Giudice was just eliminated. She was the second celebrity eliminated from Dancing with the Stars, and that shows you because it's 50% viewer call-ins and votes and 50% judges. And so a lot of people are like, oh, well, she was kicked off because she can't dance. I'm like, but 50% of it should have been her loyal community since they're so loud on Twitter. Whether you watch the show or not, you're so loud and you love her so much. Don't you think you would still find a way just to support her? You know?
I feel like people who watch New Jersey do like Teresa because she brings the drama. She's glamorous. Mm-hmm. She looks good. You know, it's centered around her. But people who just know of her as the table flipper and know of her as the one who went to prison don't have those warm feelings for her. So I'm not super surprised that she didn't excel on as with a show that you have to vote. Yeah. You know, because I don't think the public has warm feelings towards her because she's her you know, she's thought of as a criminal by much of the public. You know, she hasn't had a chance to change the perception of herself if you haven't watched the show. Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me. What I did want to mention about Twitter is the Kathy Hilton business. I have to wonder, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but you know, there's so much love for Kathy on Twitter, which that's great for Kathy. I wonder, do you think that some of it could be bots? Do you think that some of it could be purchased?
Well, 1,000%. I think, and it goes back to like Lisa Vanderpump. She's another great example of somebody that went on like a Dancing with the Stars, totally kicked out early. She had her overserved show on E! Bombed in ratings. She had her Vanderpump Dog spinoff on Peacock, bombed in ratings. She had her NBC show with Rebel Wilson about dogs where she was a coach or training or whatever, bombed in ratings. You know, she hasn't been able, even though she has such a loud audience on social media, and these are the ones that attack the other women of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and have this hashtag RHOBH Mean Girls, which is so fucking stupid. But so they are so loud on the internet, but they don't translate. So it makes you wonder, are these actual bots? You know, I saw that there was somebody on Twitter that did like a SWOT of the women's Instagram accounts, and they found out like Garcelle's Instagram account has the highest percentage of bots that support her on Instagram, and she doesn't get a lot of hate on Instagram, nor does she get a lot of hate on Twitter, but she gets a lot of love on social media, which is interesting that she has such a high percentage of having bots likely following her, not trolling her, but likely following her. And you see how popular she is on social media, but then you look at her track record since she joined Real Housewives of Beverly Hills 3 seasons ago. She launched a podcast, Going to Bed with Garcelle, bombed. She was on The Real, got canceled. Her book came out, was not a New York Times bestseller. She launched a home line, also bombed. And then you have other housewives like Lisa Rinna who can go on QVC and they can sell out of their products. She can launch Rinna Beauty and the sales are so well that now it's available on Amazon. Erica Jane, on her second season on the show, launched a book, was a New York Times bestseller. She had no celebrities endorsing it. You didn't even see Lisa Vanderpump or Denise Richards send out one tweet in support of Garcelle's book. So this crazy juxtaposition between the amount of love people receive online and how that converts, for me, I even look at it as like, yes, I know I attract a lot of negativity on social media and I have very strong opinions and I have conviction in what I say. But I look at that in terms of like other creators who have all of these supporters and all of this love. But I'm like, but where is the conversion there? Because I know if I tell people, hey guys, I just launched a new wine, go check it out, they'll go and they'll actually buy it. People support me in a way that I think, even though my audience may seem a little smaller, the retention and the loyalty seems so much stronger.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny too, you mentioned about Garcelle. I feel like Garcelle doesn't need, however she's getting the support, whether she's buying it or not. To me, she's such a genuine, warm personality that it's not translating into, success in these other ventures. I don't know, for whatever reason that may be, but I think, Garcelle is just she's kind of like Kyle, she's a potential center of the show, because she's likable. And the funny thing to me about, to kind of segue into Kyle is that, the Twitter tide has really turned against her, and she's kind of lumped into that hashtag that you just mentioned. I don't get that. And, full disclosure, I did, as part of my job, interviewed Kyle 10 years ago, a long time ago. I met her once for a minute. She was very pleasant. So I don't know, Liz, I don't know Kyle Richards, but I like her on my TV, but it's just funny, the level, again, it doesn't seem commiserate, like, towards what she's done. A lot of people say she ruined Kim. She brought Kathy on the show. She ruined her sisters. Kim and Kathy are adults. They signed those papers. They decided to come on.
And let's be real. Kim is a monster. I love Kim on my television. She's so entertaining. But Kim is a monster. And she was like, I think Kyle is the biggest whipping post amongst those three sisters. And I think the other two of them really bully her. And it is funny, you compare Kyle to Garcelle. They are very similar, right? And I feel like all the things people love about Garcelle are all the same things they hate about Kyle, which is such an interesting double standard. To me, I don't think Kyle is as polarizing as people make her out to be.
I don't either. And I think a lot of the hate towards Kyle, and I don't like when people say this is, when they're like, oh, they're jealous or jealous. I do think that some of it with Kyle is jealousy. I mean, Kathy said it in the last issue, she does it all, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but by all, by what we see, her daughters are lovely. They love her. Her husband is a fan favorite. She's acting in movies. She has a beautiful home. She's got tons of friends. I can understand when some people, they don't like that. She does seem to have it all. So when they try to paint Kyle as a monster, I don't get it. I don't see where that comes from. When you say what you say about Kim, Kim has said terrible things about people. I mean, people say that Rinna was so awful to Kim. Kim was pretty terrible to Rinna.
In that same table scene that they love to play about Lisa Rinna throwing the glass on the table and reaching at Kim, like, you can compare that to so many other scenes that, like, Kim was no little, innocent chihuahua that was just crawling in the corner. Kim was like, let's talk about the husband. You're a beast. Shut your effing mouth. Eat a piece of bread.
Eat a piece of bread. She talked about Taylor's lip. I mean, she went after people's appearances a lot. And, it just, So the painting of Kim and Kathy as sort of these angels is just
or
bizarre to
victims that they're innocent and that Kyle's evil and Kyle. And here, have you read House of Hilton?
I haven't, but I watched your podcast about it, so I know it through you.
I want to do like a full recap for the podcast because the book club is only on YouTube, but I feel like it's so relevant now that I might rehash some of that stuff and just do like a 1 hour recap of or maybe not even a full hour since Kathy's only the focus of half of the book, Big Kathy. But it's so wild because these sisters were raised to compete with each other and to be, try to one up each other because they were all trying to gain the affection and adoration of their mother. And she would purposefully pick a favorite at the moment to make the other two feel insecure and then compete for her love. And It was just, and so that's why I understand their dynamic now. And I think, if any of them, Kyle's probably the only one that's still, has that need to please. And that's why she kind of is the whipping post to her two sisters. But I think Kathy, being the oldest, I think is probably the one that embodies her the most. And we see some of Kim's erratic behavior, and we see she did the mother-daughter experiment where she went on with, I think it was her daughter Brooke, and she was fighting with one of the other women, and she was like really getting in her face and taking off her jacket and like ready to fight. And then it kind of makes sense that you hear these stories of their mother, and a lot of these behaviors that we heard from this book that's at this point almost 20 years old, all these things that we read about in this book have been sprinkled in the characteristics amongst these three women.
I thought it was interesting in the last episode that Rinna, listen, I do think Rinna was a little strident in that episode, but I think she was making points, and she kept saying to Kyle, listen, and to Kathy, you need therapy. I would suggest going to therapy. I don't think things are going to get better until you do. And you have to wonder, has Kathy ever done that? Because, I think Rinna was making a point, like, where is this anger coming from? What, like, we all have complicated relationships with our siblings. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever think to say, I want to destroy my brother. I want to destroy his family. Sisters are a little different.
I've heard some of the things that Kathy allegedly said, and they are so like wild that I understand why these women were so appalled by it.
Well, and I think too, wasn't Rinna, and I'll get more into Rinna in a bit, but she was insinuating that something even darker was said, that the names, and I think that harkens back to the rumors about something homophobic or something racist may have been said, because to me, she was kind of dancing around the subject. I could have been, just interpreting it wrong, but it seems like she was dancing around that, like, if you want to go there, Kathy, let's talk about some of the names that you said.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just this one's stupid and this one should be fired. It sounded like she was ready to go there. And she just posted something, I think this weekend, about we don't share the same beliefs.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. I don't know what happened, but where did those rumors start that something homophobic or racist was said? I don't know.
And they started at the club. They didn't start with Lisa Rinna's retelling of these things. Right. These other women. And my understanding is that the women spoke about it on camera and it was not aired. And I also understand why Bravo wouldn't want to air an accusation like that, because without actual proof of it, like, that's a really big accusation to put out there and to air on the show. So I do understand them, concealing it, not necessarily to protect Kathy, but to just kind of protect the network and the show itself. Sure. Because that's...
Will Andy bring it up, though? That's what I'd like to know.
I hear it comes up at the reunion. I hear it's said, like, the words are said at the reunion. The women discuss it. Again, whether or not it'll air, I know that it was spoken about during the filming. These things were said on camera. The edit that we're getting doesn't appear to be reflective of what these women were saying. But then here's the other thing. So we have these moments that were shown to us in the mid-season trailer. Remember, at Erica's hair lunch? We have a lunch with Crystal and Rinna that looks like it took place after Crystal's birthday, where they're sitting down and Rinna's like, the things that were said were dark. And Crystal's like, what? They're really that dark? And she's like, yes, they're really that dark. And then we have a second that was not shown in this week's episode. And then we have a second clip that was from Erica's Pretty Mess pop-up party, where she says, if I can be ripped apart, orphans or widows and earrings, then Kathy needs to own her shit too. So these things were discussed we're
Right.
not seeing that. And now the hair pretty mess pop-up party is gone. We already got that full scene. Now we're moving into the finale where we have Garcelle's party and then Kyle's party. So it seems like those things were completely removed from whatever the storyline was supposed to be when the mid-season trailer dropped.
Well, Zach, I mean, you can speak. You read House of Hilton. There was, I know in the podcast you talked about there were certain things, I believe Kathy was dating one of the Jackson 5.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, I mean, according to the author, Big Kathy, didn't she say, I don't want you dating one of the Jacksons because
he's black. Yeah.
And we're talking about,
And not only that, but the conflict in that of being like, I want my daughter to date someone famous because that was a big priority. And so Big Kathy's conflict, according to the author, was, do I want her to date one of the Jackson 5 because I don't want her? And this, I think, came from a story from one of Big Kathy's friends that's interviewed in the book where she remembers Big Kathy coming to her and having this conflict of like, I want my daughter to date somebody famous, yes, but I don't want her to date someone that is black.
Right. I mean, listen, we don't know. That's according to the book. I mean, what we do know, and, sorry to go there, but like there are those videos of Kathy's daughters saying terrible things.
Yeah.
They were young women at the time, but where were those words coming from? I didn't have those words growing up. I'm not saying my parents were perfect, but where did Paris and Nikki hear those words? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's suspect. And, a lot of people talk about the friendship with Trump. Again, they were New York hoteliers in the 80s. I get it. But, Kathy is still going to his events. And I mean, this is a man
she skipped the reunion to go to his party in Florida. She skipped the reunion.
Right. And, it's like, okay.
Or not the reunion. Sorry. She skipped the finale party, not the reunion.
Right, exactly. I don't know. I listen, I've just feel strong. I mean, political affiliation is one thing, but it's like, we know that Donald Trump has done, Donald Trump is not like Mary Cheney, you know what I mean? Like he has done, or not, Mary Cheney. I mean, he's done terrible, terrible things. And the fact that she's still co-signing him by going to events sponsored by him, I don't know. I mean, you could use your daffy personality and say, oh, I didn't know. But come on, Kathy.
Well, let's talk about Crystal, because I feel like Crystal has the biggest double standard here where she's like, I believe Kathy. And then we see her at Erica's party being like, I think it's problematic that somebody's even requesting Billie Jean. And how do these women know that this isn't problematic? Well, it's like, but the person requesting Billie Jean was Kathy Hilton. And last season, we see Kathy Hilton speaking so highly of her dear friend Michael Jackson and how she doesn't see color. And those words came out of her mouth. Sutton was the one that was put in the hot seat. And those words didn't necessarily come out of Sutton's mouth. She was kind of dancing around that topic when Crystal called Sutton out on that, but those words came out of Kathy's mouth. And Crystal doesn't seem to have that same standard with Kathy or holding Kathy's feet to the fire the way that she did Sutton. And yet here she is judging these women about, judging Cherie, saying that, oh, I still like Billie Jean. And Crystal's like, it's no wonder these women don't think that it's problematic, but yet Kathy's the one requesting Billie Jean and speaking so highly of her dear friend Michael Jackson. So it's like where, and I think Crystal's the biggest flip-flopper, and I think she just goes with, wherever the tide takes her in terms of, I liked Crystal last season because she seemed to really have a backbone and stand on her own, especially when she was going up to Sutton. But I feel like this season she just totally crashed and burned because nobody knows who she is. I think she's so disingenuous at this point.
Yeah, no, I get it. That whole exchange was bizarre. I mean, I don't know where maybe Crystal feels no allegiance to Kathy because she kind of brought her on the show, but and I do think that Kathy, has fostered this sort of like daffy rich lady personality, and so people are kind of like, oh, Kathy, whatever, you still like Michael Jackson, you don't see color, sure. But Sutton, I guess, is a younger woman. She seems a little more with it, so she's held to the fire. But I don't think Kathy is that naive, and I think Rinna was poking that, and she was saying, you're not going to get away with it with your tears, and you're just I know what's up here, and I'm not going to cut you a pass like everyone else does, like Crystal does, and I listen, and I do think that Kathy does have a lot of power and people are intimidated by her. And I think you have to, Rinna is probably, feels a little, I mean, she said she felt threatened.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want the Hiltons after me. So I get it. And I do think a lot of people kind of treat her with kid gloves, Kathy with kid gloves, because of her status and her wealth.
I saw someone post on Instagram saying Kathy could steal from orphans and widows and I would still support her because the way Rinna's treating her is so bad.
It's weird to me. Okay, so about Rinna. So 20 years ago when I started working PR, I worked at a PR firm and we represented her. And so she was a client of ours. And so I would take her to events and walk her to red carpets. I thought she was a who. I thought she was funny. She was a girl's girl, a gay guy's girl. She I didn't have issues with her. There were people she didn't like at our agency that she made clear. But, we weren't best friends. We worked together. So I had warm feelings towards her. I saw her maybe 6 years ago and I went up to her. I think it was like she did not remember at all. But then I was like, remember, I worked at this PR for, oh, yeah. So I think it sprung in her mind a little bit. But so I have no allegiance to Rinna. But I do, when I did know her, I liked her. So aside from that, I don't get, listen, I feel like she's slid into the villain role and people are so happy to to cast her as that. But I don't get it. I think she was a little strident at that talk, with Kathy. But listen, and so people are very upset that there's no footage of the psychotic break, but she's never denied it. Kathy never denied that she was acting like a monster. She could have easily said, it wasn't that bad, Lisa. It was not that big a deal. I was upset. I think you're exaggerating it. I think you're going overboard. If she said that, then the editors cut it because we never saw any sort of denial, any sort of you're exaggerating. She didn't even say that.
Even Lisa's reference to the words you were calling people, there's no denial of it.
Right. Right. And I don't think it's easy just from what we've witnessed for Kathy to apologize, but she was very clear that she had to apologize to all the women, including her sister. And, so I think she knew it was pretty damn bad. And, and I think Kyle was really trying to get an answer as to why she would go there, and I think Lisa was right. There was no resolution. Why would you think those terrible things? I mean, clearly I thought that they had gotten past some of their business, but if she's harboring such dark feelings for her sister, I don't know. I guess at that point, when you've gone through that much, maybe it's best to just brush it off. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but speaking for myself, I don't have the inclination to say I'm going to ruin almost anyone.
Yeah.
That's just not part of my wheelhouse.
The other interesting part is I feel like we don't ever really hear Kyle openly be shocked that her sister behaved this way. Even when she said that she was seeing the text messages that Rinna was sending Erica while Erica was still at the club. And Kyle's like, I saw it and I didn't even want to, Kyle's like, I just didn't even want to deal with it. It's kind of seeming like Kyle's probably seen this before. If somebody says if somebody says one of your siblings is having a psychotic break and is melting down at your house and your first reaction is, I don't want to deal with that. That tells me that maybe we've seen this behavior before and we just know she needs to Tasmanian devil herself to bed.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle said so, said to Kathy, you screamed in my face before.
Yeah.
You just haven't really done it in front of other people and maybe when there were camera phones around. So I think, it's a familiar thing with Kyle. And, Kyle, I think the previous episode said, whatever Kathy is upset about, it's going to be my fault. I know that I'm going to be blamed for it. So, and I think Kyle was blamed. This is insinuated throughout the show that Kyle was blamed by Kathy for bringing Kim onto the show when, as we've discussed, Kim is a grown adult and made the decision to go on the show. The whole thing about about Kyle creating a show about their mom, which I've never seen the show. I think you saw it, right? You saw American Women. From what I've read and seen is that it's not a derogatory depiction of their mother.
It's the opposite. I was surprised when I read House of Hilton and then compared it to American Woman, because American Woman makes it seem like their mother was abandoned by their father. He cheated and left her for another woman. And then the mom had to she didn't know what to do, and she didn't know how to survive. And she had to work. And then she put the girls in show business to help bring money in. And when we read House of Hilton, we see that Big Kathy was no meek woman. She was very, strategic and very driven and ambitious from a very young age.
Right. So it's strange to me. I mean, maybe I don't know the how it all went down. Maybe Kyle, signed the papers for the show and didn't bring it up to her sisters. I can understand being a little annoyed about that. At least run it by me. But it wasn't like they were just. I don't even think Kathy was a character in the show. So it's strange. And then Kathy doesn't speak to her for years. But I mean, there was a business with the agency. Who knows what went down there? But when you're siblings, there's things like this that go down, and you gotta let it die. And it seems like Kathy has not.
I would also say that based off of some of the behavior that we've seen some of Kathy Hilton's children exhibit, and some of the words that have come out of their mouth that we've seen on footage, and the clips are circulating on Twitter now, and some of the things that Kathy has allegedly said and been accused of saying, I wouldn't be surprised if their issues with Mauricio were a lot deeper than just the agency.
Right. And yes. And
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. If you can catch my drift. Either.
And we were talking about Paris and Nikki, and I don't mean to just, just dump on them, because Kathy has sons too.
Yeah.
And I know one of them was arrested near Palm Springs and was saying the most vile things to the cop, racist, homophobic. I can buy you, that kind of thing. He had a meltdown on a plane, was saying like, I can buy all you people. It's like, where does that sense of entitlement? Listen, you can't blame the parents for everything, but I mean, that's really gross. And I don't know. These are young, generally young people, and to be harboring such horrible, outdated takes on race and homosexuality is shocking to me. And you have to think, where is this coming from?
Yeah, and just their outbursts. I mean, we even remember when Paris Hilton, or when Lindsay Lohan accused Paris Hilton of punching her and beating her up because she was upset with her. So it's like we've seen these things, or we've heard allegations for a very long time. We've never heard these things about any of Kyle's kids.
No, never. And it's kind of been brushed over. And Paris has been having this, like they've been trying to resuscitate her career and bring her back into the public spotlight. She had that documentary. And listen, I applaud what she's doing with trying to end some of the asylums that she was thrown into. Well, that's another thing. Paris was tossed into this place in Utah.
Kidnapped, she was kidnapped and placed into this willingly. Right. Her parents signed her up for this and watched these men take her away.
Right. So, that's another thing. And I'm glad that Paris is speaking out against that, and that has become a mission in her life. But, it feels like when the documentary came out and we were talking about Paris again, generally in the media, it was not brought up that there's this history of these really awful comments, and not just about people of color, but about gay people. She several times said gay people are gross. And, so it's just weird that sometimes with the Hiltons, they get scrubbed clean of their past. And, I don't think everyone gets that second chance. It's strange that people aren't always like, well, remember, has Paris ever apologized for this? Has Kathy ever said, I don't know, apologize for any of her kids' behavior? Because it's really horrible, some of what they've done.
Yeah. And there's footage of it. Everyone wants to drag up. I think recently on the internet, they were bringing up some tweets that Lisa Rinna put out about her time on Celebrity Apprentice, and how, oh my God, who was she? There was someone that one of the Black cast members on the show. Lisa, I guess, didn't get along with, and so she tweeted about them. And so
Star Jones, I think it was.
Yeah, Star Jones. That's it. Star Jones, and I think Dionne Warwick were both with Lisa Rinna. And I think she didn't like them or tweeted. I haven't seen the tweets themselves, but I saw chatter online about how she said something about them, and people were trying to resurface that and be like, oh, well, Lisa Rinna's racist. But it's like, well, have you seen the videos of Paris? Have you seen about Kathy's kids? And again, like you said, those things don't come from nowhere.
They don't come from nowhere. And I don't think that, no one is saying Lisa Rinna's an angel.
Yeah,
I don't, there are two truths can be true. Two things can be true at once, and I just don't think this whataboutism. Well, look at what Lisa did. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's not fine. It's bad, but it's just like, it doesn't justify the act, what we're hearing Kathy may have said and what her kids have clearly said. And some of the actions that Kathy has done, it's just, it's just strange that she says hunky-dory once and now everyone's just like, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like,
and again, to that point of like, when there was that comment that somebody posted, it was a feed post. I don't remember the account, but it was a feed post that somebody had written saying Kathy can literally rob orphans and widows. And I, would still support her because of the way Rinna's treating her. And I'm just like, what is this reality? We're going to beat up Erica for the orphans and widows things, but we're saying it's okay if Kathy does it. And we're upset with the way Rinna is treating Kathy, when let's just take that last scene with Rinna and Kathy and we rewind 5 minutes and we see the scene with Kyle and Kathy, and Kyle's literally there in tears and Kathy's giving her the look like, Kyle, like, pull it together, the way she's talking to her. And then people are upset that Kathy then has heard crocodile tears about her friend with cancer that she hasn't even told her sister about, and Lisa's like, you're not going to get away with this with me. Like, you're not just going to break down and cry and say that, you have this person in your life that has cancer and all of a sudden everything's, supposed to be hunky-dory because you're going through something right now,
Right. Yeah, I thought that was telling when Kyle was just like trying to get a real response from her sister about where this anger comes from, and she kind of got shut down. And and it was a bit condescending. It was very much big sister talking to a child and saying, okay, we're not going there. We're done.
Have a bracelet and shut up.
Have a bracelet. Shut up. Yeah, I know. I felt very bad. I don't know. People like to vilify Kyle, but I am in the camp where I think she's endured a lot with her sisters. And I think having a sister who has had substance abuse problems is not easy. And having a sister who married into a super wealthy family that can do anything and knows everyone is not easy. You feel very indebted to them, especially. And I bet that was sort of the role that was played until Kyle started getting her own success, where it was like, your husband needs a job. Yeah. Okay, well, he can work at the agency. You need, help buying this house, or whatever it may be. But then the roles reversed a little, not reversed, but Kyle didn't need Kathy's money and status anymore. And, who knows how that was received. Kim, for a long time, has been very indebted to Kathy. And Kyle, maybe 10 years ago, was in the same role, but that changed. Maybe not 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, but it changed. And, Kyle is now doing her own thing. And I'm hoping that Kathy was true. It was being honest and really just feel happy for her and is proud of her, not resentful.
I think she's resentful. I mean, come on, you look at the way the mother raised them, and like Kyle is she's, the main star of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, or a main cast member, if you don't want to call her the star, a main cast member. She's over here in the Halloween franchise, which is one of the biggest, Halloween horror franchises in that genre. She's doing
those commercials for
and the NFL.
Yeah, she's doing Hallmark movies. I mean, she says she's working her ass off, and she wasn't lying.
And Kathy's not working. Kathy's not working in entertainment, really, other than doing, reality TV. That's really Paris. Kathy had a Who Wants to Be a Hilton reality show that bombed many, many years ago. Kathy's never written a book. Kathy's never really done anything that's given her, commercial recognition in that way. What's Kathy's claim to fame? That she's a gold digger that married rich. You know, people love to drag Erica for marrying rich, you know, and it's like, can't call Erica a gold digger and not call Kathy Hilton a gold digger too. Because
someone said, you know, she's been known as someone's husband and then someone's mother and then someone's sister. And I'm sure that's a bitter pill to swallow. You know what I mean? And it seems like she does have a good sense of humor. And I'm sure part of her, I can only assume, feels a little upset that she's always been sort of the side character. She's been someone's plus one. And, you know, being a fan favorite on Housewives has probably given her something that she's either didn't know she wanted or wanted for a long time.
You know what's interesting in reference to Kim is if we go back to the fight with Kyle and Kim in the limo at the end of season 1, the finale, when Kyle talks about taking care of Kim, and you think Kyle and Mauricio didn't have the success that they have now that they had then. So the most successful sister would have been Kathy and her husband Rick. Why was it Kyle's responsibility to then take care of Kim? Because Kyle's saying in the limo, my husband's taking care of you as if you were a second wife. You were, you know, in and out of rehab and you have a drinking problem and we've still taken care of you.
Right.
I think that's very telling.
In House of Hilton, it said that the Richards, their father who adopted Kathy, I think, and was sort of a de facto father for Kathy, that you know, she was kind of turned away from them at a certain point and wasn't, you know, kind of washed her hands of the Richards, the dad. I forget his first name.
Ken.
So I don't know. I mean, and it's one of the Richards' second wife or following wife after Big Kathy described Kathy as very self-involved. So I don't know. I don't, you know, maybe Kathy was living in New York and couldn't help Kim, but
well, it was it was Ken's third wife after Big Kathy, Sylvia, and she claims that because he was really sick, he had developed a terminal cancer, and they were overwhelmed with medical bills. This is all according to the book. They were overwhelmed with medical bills, and they were buried in debt. They came to Rick Hilton and Kathy several times, and they turned them away, would not help them out financially, and then eventually they loaned them $10,000 that they had to ultimately sell their house in order to pay back Kathy and Rick.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. And I don't know all the backstory, but it's, it seems like Kyle, at least according to her, was the one that was really kind of lifting up Kim during her hard times. I'm sure Kathy had her hands full with Paris too, but, you know, I don't know. From everything we've read and we've seen, it's hard for me to have too much, feel too bad for Kathy. And I know that's going against the grain. I think you feel the same way. And I know that's, you know, when you kind of voice that on Twitter, you get a lot of blowback, but I'm just going from what I've seen and read. And I think Kyle has shouldered a lot with that family, but I do think the dynamic is so fascinating. And I think it's what makes Beverly Hills such a great show. And I think it was getting her on the show, Kathy, really rejuvenated it in a way. But I don't think she's going to return. Do you?
I think she will.
Oh,
considering how much she's been able to get away with this season, I think she'll come back, knowing that she, you know, because it's like they're not going to come at her again. I don't think they can. I think at this point, like, Kyle wants to just move on. Like, I think Kathy knows she can run these other women off the show. Because we've even seen Kyle was just doing an Amazon Live this week where she says that, you know, she loves Erica and Rinna, but she's having a hard time with them since all of this has kind of come out. And, you know, right now she feels the closest to Sutton and Garcelle. And I think that's Kyle already being like, I need to, you know, go with the fan favorites. And Kyle, I think, is going to buckle and realize she has to just play nice with her sister and she has to go with what the fans want. I think it's going to end up killing the show, but, you know, we'll have to see. I can't imagine Bravo doing a major cast overhaul considering how high the ratings are right now. I can't imagine that happening.
I said to you, I think that it must be super expensive. I don't imagine the production cost for the show. I mean, you know, reality TV is not that expensive to produce because you're just filming at a restaurant or someone's home. But what they're paying Kyle, what they're paying, you know, even Garcelle. I mean, you have a huge cast. So I don't know how, you know, I mean, it's working, but I imagine that there's going to be some pressure to start relieving, some of those really high paid women on the show. I'm sure Erica gets paid quite well. Rinna, the producers are going to look to be cutting a little fat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But and I think they did that with RHONY, and it didn't work.
Yeah, RHONY totally blew up, crashed and burned in front of them. And I feel like they're really going to struggle to get it back on track because I don't think this reboot is going to be successful. And I don't know how much longevity Legacy has.
I don't know. Yeah, I would watch Legacy because I'm old and I watch those shows.
I would watch it, but I just don't think it has the shelf life that the classic had.
Agreed. And I do know that they've had casting issues with the new one. Remy Ma was supposed to be in it, the rapper, and that fell through because she lived in New Jersey. But that's so funny to me that that's such a big deal. Like, I mean, don't most of the women of Beverly Hills, they live in Pasadena or they live, I don't
think any of them actually live in Beverly Hills.
Right.
And the thing is, I feel like New York housewives, like an actual woman working and doing a hustle and bustle in New York, it's very common to live in Jersey and work in New York.
Or Connecticut, it's strange that would be a sticking point. Maybe that actually wasn't the sticking point. That was just the sticking point that that Page Six
got picked up on,
was given. So I know that, and then the finale is all about like who's leaking to the press for Beverly Hills. It's all about who's leaking to the press. I think that they think that storyline is a lot more interesting than viewers do. So we'll see how that finale closes out. But it seems to come up on every show. Someone leaks something to the press. I mean, this is the whole Lucy apple juicy business. It's like, oh God, are we going here again?
And the audience isn't dumb because we also know that it's not just the women who can leak things to the press. Right. There are assistants, there are production people, there are producers that know that this is going to drive a storyline. So it's very common for it to not just be a cast member on the show to leak it. I think the cast at this point knows that they don't have to leak things to the press anymore or at all because somebody else is going to say a hairstylist that saw something on set, something,
Exactly. Yeah. I was watching it. I watched Atlanta this season and I actually enjoyed it. I don't know what your thoughts were. I enjoyed Marlo. I think her storyline was very interesting. But other than that, it was a little stale.
Yeah. I had high expectations for Atlanta this season, but I think what it is these shows have been on so long that they're just kind of naturally growing stale and we're kind of just losing. We're not shocked by a lot of any of this stuff anymore. And I think that's the issue. I think that's what happened with New York. I think that's what's happening right now with Atlanta is it's just even bringing Sheree back, I don't think had the moment that we thought it was going to have. Like, I think we need to start closing out some of these shows and moving into a legacy model where, we do one season. Every season of Legacy should be New York, Atlanta, like similar to like Ultimate Girls Trip, where we catch up with the core central figures and use that as a way to put a nice little bow on the franchise and move it forward, And I think we could have done that with Atlanta, where we brought back Sheree in a legacy way, maybe brought back some of the other, now that Phaedra's back in good graces with the fans, I think there's a way to kind of put it all together. Because like, how great would have Legacy have been with seeing the She by Sheree fashion show? Like that to me would have been just such a good moment for the fans.
Agreed. I'll say this about Phaedra. I thought she was super hilarious. You know who she reminded me of on Ultimate Girls Trip? Like Dolly Parton. Yeah. Like she just was super funny and sexy and just comedic relief. But, I think she was lacking some candor. And, there was that moment where they were like, talk about your exit from the show. And she wouldn't say a peep. And it's like, come on, Phaedra.
She's a good friend of. I don't think she can be a full-time housewife because, like you said, she doesn't give us everything that we need. But when we put her in this reduced capacity, she can deliver funny sound bites. She can be a hunky-dory type of character. You know what I mean? Exactly. And it's great.
She could actually, she should be on a show. Like she should, like Eva Marcel, I think I'm mispronouncing her last name. She's acting a lot. I feel like Phaedra could act a lot because she's just a natural personality. But when you do these shows, you got to put your life out there. Yeah. And listen, it's not the easiest thing, but you have to do it or it's not going to work, you know? And so that was a little disappointing about Phaedra. So, everyone's like, bring her back. I don't know.
I don't think we need to bring her back.
No. Yeah. Who else? I mean, I liked, the I don't know. When Marla was talking about her childhood, I thought that was very touching, and I thought that Kenya's reaction was really, I don't know. Kenya was pretty cruel in that reunion, I thought, but that's that's Kenya.
Yeah.
So
and she is the villain. What do you think about them bringing Vicky and Tamara back to OC this season?
So I can't speak too much about OC, but I did watch Girls Trip. I thought Tamara was really came off really well on Girls Trip. I thought she was likable and funny and honest and present. So good. I was happy for Tamara. Vicky, I don't know.
This was Vicky's moment, and she totally tanked it on Girls Trip.
I mean, listen, she brought the drama, and clearly she had gotten dumped the day before. That is pretty terrible.
Listen, I would go in full on heartbreak. I would go on, missing an arm, and I would still deliver, Vicky, I would not crawl up in bed and be like, I'm sad. Like, no, I would go and I would be like, if this is my chance to get back on the show, I'm all in. And that's what Tamara did. And Vicky didn't. And Tamara got her full-time contract. So Vicky was now spotted filming at lunch with Tamara and with Shannon, the Tres Amigas, seeming to kind of wrap up their sort of story. I think when Bravo's wrapping up these old stories, like the She by Sheree fashion show, giving Marlo her peach, kind of bringing Vicky, Tamara, and Shannon together, I think that's very writing on the wall that this is all coming to an end soon if we're starting to tie up loose ends and kind of,
I mean, it's, if you think about the new women on Atlanta, like I like Drew to a point, but like some of it seems forced, like that whole nonsense with Sheree and like the assistant, like that,
and
I think they called her out in the reunion that she was looking for a storyline, and Sonia, I mean, I don't know. Sonia seemed like she was working real hard. Like it didn't come off as super genuine. So it's, I don't think they're not bad housewives, but I don't think they've clicked in a huge way. So as far as the continuation of the show, we'll see. I mean, I think Marlo's compelling, but I don't know. I mean, they got to bring some women in that really click. I started watching Salt Lake and then stopped. And then my husband and I watched the premiere, and he's an ex-Mormon, so he's kind of vested in Salt Lake, and there was a lot of interesting storylines about Whitney leaving the church, and that was interesting. It's interesting to me when they kind of go outside of like the relationships between the women and like the bickering and talk about something that really means something important to them. And clearly the Mormon church has weighed on Whitney a lot, and I thought that was a good exchange. And I thought the premiere was pretty good. Meredith was like, Meredith, clearly what Lisa Barlow did to her was terrible.
Yeah.
But it's like Lisa Barlow shot her with a BB gun or let's say a handgun, and Meredith responded with a bazooka.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's hard to get the high ground after you were like, she's having an affair, she's a trans, it's just everything she could say about Lisa Barlow came out.
I think that's why it's really hard with Housewives now, like to your point about like Drew trying so hard, and now we see Meredith coming in so hard. And this isn't Meredith from what we've gotten of her in the past 2 seasons. And I love Meredith, and I've had her on this show, and she was great to chat with, but it's just like, I didn't love that it feels like Meredith is trying too hard to be a housewife. Even her moment where she was sipping on the, where she had the mug and she came out and the mug said, "I love New York" on it. Even that to me didn't land the way that I think people really seem to enjoy it. Because to me, I was like, it's so obvious that there's nothing in that mug. It's so obvious that was such a forced sort of moment. Like the way she's holding the mug, like she didn't even take a real sip of it. Like it was just like, I'm like, ugh, it could have been, if we just had done this so organically, if she had just come in so organically, because I think that's what made her so great, is even as over the top as she was in her first 2 seasons, she was herself. And it feels like coming in this season, she's not herself. Even Whitney, I liked that we're breaking up with the Mormons. I think Heather's breakup with the Mormon church is more genuine, authentic, and compelling than Whitney's, because Whitney's never really shown us this side of her until now, that it felt like, and even being like, I printed out the contract and here is the contract and I'm signing the contract. Like, I feel like these women, just like Drew with the dog bones and throwing them, it's so trying too hard. And what it is Housewives has become there's already a mold, right? And we're trying so hard to become a meme. We're trying so hard to become a GIF. We're trying so hard to have a moment. A Monique Samuels with the binder at the Potomac reunion. Like, we're trying to have these moments so hard now, and it's not honest anymore. And I think
genuine. Yeah. And I think that's why Beverly Hills is doing so well, because that exchange between Kathy and Kyle was
real.
It was real. And Kyle was so hurt. And Kathy, clearly, she was hurt too and was trying to make it better. But I mean, it's hard to get that. I mean, unless you have sisters or, I think that's maybe what they have to invest in, is a show where it is relatives, or you got to have a genuine connection, because, and a connection that's lasted decades, because I think that you could sense the hurt in Kyle and Kathy. And, but it's like, do I think that Drew cares a lot about, oh God, what is her name? The one she threw a dog bone at.
Sure.
No, Drew from Atlanta. It was Sheree's friend. It was the one that she called, who I can't even remember her name right now. But it's like, do I think that Drew Sidora really cares about this woman? No, I really don't. So
I think even seeing, I know everyone's like, we need to get rid of the Fox Force 4. I think seeing Kyle and Dorit fight in Aspen, like, those to me are so much more compelling. Or just for me, like, those are real relationships that the stakes are a lot higher for them, and they're going to work hard to repair that. Or even Kyle and Erica, when they were fighting and they came back together. Even seeing Erica, as nasty as it was, seeing her be like, I don't care about anybody else but me, that moment was just so raw. Yeah. And I mean, and that's one thing that I respect about Erica, is she even said in one of these recent episodes, like, the ones with the most to hide are the ones that are, the most buttoned up. But she's like, I've got nothing to lose at this point. So she's just putting it all on the table. And I think that there's something, that hooks us about that. Even when we are angry at what she's saying and the awful things that may come out of her mouth sometimes, I just think there's something about that is, captivating.
Even that therapy scene with her
session,
was, it was clearly, it was produced. I think Erica's no dummy, and she's like, I'm gonna go, not gonna wear a stitch of makeup, I'm gonna put my hair in a bun, and I'm gonna look like a damaged woman. But even considering that, I think that she was having an honest moment with her therapist as much as she could while cameras are on her. And it was hard not to sympathize with her a little bit.
Yeah.
I struggle with Erica. I think, it's like with Sutton, it's like they're pleading with her to just like, it's not going to hurt you, Erica. It's not going to hurt you legally if you say something terrible happened and people are suffering. And you know what I mean? It's just, so I think that I struggle with that, but I don't know. But then she says, you see the therapy session, you feel better about, not hating her. And then she says, I don't care about anyone. And it's like, maybe she didn't mean that. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. It's hard with me for Erica. Some people are very much support her. Some people just demonize her.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence with her. I think she's a complicated one.
But see, but doesn't that make this show so much more interesting to watch?
Yes.
It's because you have these people, these characters that make you feel conflicted, that make you feel like you're watching this story unfold, and you're like, I don't know which way it's going to go. Do I like this person? Do I not like this person? It's not like a blind, like, I just stand this one housewife. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think all of these characters really kind of make the formula for Beverly Hills so great, and that's why we continue to watch it every week.
I mean, their lives are really big.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the attraction of the show, is that you have Kyle, has histories in the business, and you have Erica, who, is embroiled in this huge, lawsuit and financial scandal. Even Rinna, she's been married to someone who some would consider an icon of television, and film, I guess, to an extent. So they, these are people who lead big lives. So ultimately there's going to be high drama and high stakes. So that, yes, it does make the show interesting. So I think that's why Beverly Hills is doing so well. It's got to be hard to keep it up. And I'm sure the pressure's on Andy and company to do that. Erica does make the show interesting. I don't know. I feel really conflicted about Erica. You know what I stuck on with Erica too is that her music career. Like I remember, being an editor, getting those press releases way back when. This was before she was on Housewives, that there's this new pop star on the scene named Erica Jane. And I remember watching the videos and thinking, oh my, what is that? Like, who is she appealing to? And it just was, it just seemed like the lowest common denominator stuff. And like, it's just, and I think from the presumption that a lot of gay people will just take anything that's like bright and shiny and colorful and glamorous. And it's like, a lot of us are a little more discerning than that, Eric, and so someone's like, oh, she's bringing her music career back. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure there's a few people clamoring for that.
Well, come on, Expensive is a bop. It's Expensive to Be Me is kind of, I mean, some of the older stuff I can't really subscribe to, but I mean, Expensive was great. What was the other one? Yeah. How Many F's Do I Give? I mean, I think Expensive is probably her best hit, but right. I mean.
But Expensive from a 2022 lens is
but it didn't come out in 2022. That's like holding the Billie Jean,
Yeah, it's true.
Different lens.
I don't know. It's just, it's fun, I guess, but it's, she's, it's not my cup of, I like dance music. I like techno, but it was just like, I don't know where all the money that paid for that career, it must have just gone into hair, makeup, and clothes. I have to think. I don't know.
It went into making the shiny doll that is Erica Jane. Neil, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. This was such a blast. Where can everybody go to keep up with your content, to read some of your pieces?
I am on Twitter at Broverman, and just please check out the sites that and web and magazines that I work for, The Advocate, Out Traveler, and plus we have Out magazine. We just had Billy Eichner and Luke McFarlane on the cover, so they for Bros, which is getting great reviews, which I'm very excited about. So that's on our new cover, so that you can read the story at out.com and advocate.com for The Advocate and outtraveler.com for that site. And tweet at me at Broverman. I do love talking about Housewives. It's a fun distraction to me, and with my friend Zack, he's got opinions too. Just don't be hateful. This is fun for us.
It's not that deep.
Yeah, it's not that deep. So let's just be nice to each other.
Yes, thank you so much, Neil Broverman. Everybody go give him a follow on Twitter at @Broverman, and be nice to us on Twitter. You guys can follow me at Just Plain Zack all over the internet. If you want to follow the show and get the latest reality TV tea, you can follow at No Filter with Zack, and be sure to subscribe to # No Filter with Zack Peter every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or catch live streams on the YouTube at youtube.com/justplainzack every Tuesday and Thursday, and lots of fun exclusive members only content. And be sure to stock up on some No Filter wine at nofilterwine.com. All right, guys, love you, mean it. Bye.